Hey everybody, welcome to this video, which can be thought of as the energy summary video. This is not the only thing you should look at as you get ready for your test, but hopefully this will help you tie some things together. This video will be less than 10 minutes because I have a timer, see, right there. When that hits 10 minutes, we'll know it, and then I'm stopping. They'll give you a nice, concise version, I hope, of tying together the important topics from this module. And you see them listed here. Organic molecules, enzymes, ecosystems, digestion, photosynthesis, and cell respiration. To most people not in our Biology 110 class, these are just random topics, but you should see the theme. They are tied together as different aspects, if you will, of energy. Just be reminded that energy is needed to do work, to make something move that wasn't going to move, to make a structure work in some way, which is to do a process, requires energy. And the energy we're talking about most of the time in this conversation is ATP. That's the goal. That's what we're trying to make. So trying to pull together these ideas, let me try just one little attempt at this, and it's going to be not pretty because I have to draw with a mouse, but let me try. So let's start with this idea that we are starting with the sun, and that's the sun, and you can tell because I've written sun in it. Okay, the sun provides energy in terms of wavelengths of light. Now plants, as the producers, are going to be able to capture because they have chlorophyll, they're going to be able to capture certain wavelengths of energy, and they're going to use that, or plants are going to grab that energy to actually make some intermediate molecules. Ultimately, plants are going to, through photosynthesis, I'm just going to do a P for photosynthesis, through photosynthesis, they are going to produce sugars. The sugars are going to be basically stored sun energy, stored solar energy. That's where the energy is now. As part of the production of sugars, they're also going to release a waste product, oxygen, obviously critical. Coming into this, so let me erase something here to make it a little clearer to see. So coming into photosynthesis is going to be the requirement that we have CO2. So CO2 kind of comes into this, oxygen and sugars come out. Again, this is a summary, people, but the sugars are going to be required for cell respiration, for us to be able to extract energy from it. And again, as we said in class, sugars have too much energy. Glucose has too much energy. We're going to have to go through a conversion process ultimately to produce ATP. Again, this is the goal molecule. So sugars are going to enter through cell respiration. We're going to, in the cytoplasm and the mitochondria, we're going to take the sugars through a series of reactions. Ultimately, we're going to produce ATP as a major product. We're also going to produce CO2 as a product, and of course it's going to require, coming into this, oxygen to make this work. And we'll look at how those things interrelate in a second. But again, notice ATP is the end result, if you will, from the sun. And from a molecule of glucose, from a single molecule of glucose, you can produce 36 packets, if you will, 36 ATP units that can be used to do cell work. Now, this is actually a really basic overview, so let's come back to our list. Organic molecules. Organic molecules include sugars. Plants are also, besides sugars, they're going to produce starch and cellulose and some other components. Ultimately, when a consumer, like an animal, eats them, they actually can also produce other macromolecules. They can produce their own proteins and their own nucleic acids and their own lipids. The process of digestion is to break down the food. In this case, we're starting with sugar, but to break down whatever food we consume into its most basic elemental pieces. To break it down, I'm going to type this one, to break it down to monomers. Monomers. So the monomers as we discussed in class, are going to be the monosaccharides, are going to be amino acids, they're going to be fatty acids and glycerol. But the process of digestion is to break everything down so that it's accessible by the cell's metabolism to actually ultimately produce ATP. That is the goal. Now, when we talk about digestion or photosynthesis or cell respiration, we're talking about lots of molecular conversions. We're having to break molecules or having to assemble molecules. This requires enzymes. We didn't get into a lot of detail with enzymes, but you should know that enzymes can make reactions happen because they lower the amount of energy required to force things together or to break things apart. So since they make things happen, they speed reactions up, and they are so important that if you lack an enzyme, then you may not be able to do a reaction at a fast enough rate to be effective. So enzymes are molecular helpers, and in photosynthesis you see them, in cell respiration you see them, in digestion you see them. Critical molecules. Recall that enzymes are examples of proteins, and therefore their shape really is important. Before my time runs out, I do want to mention ecosystems, because this gets a little bit at the idea of the ecological pyramid. Remember, if you look at the pyramid of energy, there are lots of producers down here. There's lots of plants that are capturing some of the sun's energy, and they're able to convert that into plant material. There's fewer primary consumers, because as every time energy is passed up the chain, that is, every time a consumer eats a producer, only about 10% of that energy gets transferred, because the rest will be lost as heat. So heat is going to be essentially in not very good conversions of energy as far as we're concerned. So 90% at every level is going to be lost. By the time we get to secondary consumers, where's my pen? Secondary consumers, same thing happens, that we will only get 10% of the 10%. So this is why we have lots of producers, but not as many consumers, and not as many secondary consumers, and not as many tertiary consumers, because every time we go up a food chain level, a trophic level, we lose some energy as heat, and therefore we can't sustain the same number of consumers here as producers down there. If we try it this way, if this person down here has $1,000 and they're going to give the person, the next person they see, 10% of their money, they're going to have $100. If this person gets 10% of their money, they're going to get 10. This person's get 10% of their money, they're only going to get 1. This person up here is only going to get 10 cents. So you see that as you go up, energy is going to be lost as heat, and therefore you have to keep having more energy coming into the system to keep it sustained. So photosynthesis is this process of capturing the energy. Cell respiration is the process of converting the energy that producers and consumers have into ATP. Organic molecules like proteins and lipids can also serve as energy molecules, but they're not nearly as good as carbohydrates. That is the preferred energy source that we're working with. So this is an overview. This is something to get you thinking about the connection between cell respiration and photosynthesis and the other reactions here. Let me just emphasize one more time this component, which is that, I don't know why I have this marker, but CO2 and water in the presence of the sunlight, I'll just put an S here, is going to yield, I'm sorry that's writing in highlighter, C6H12O6, which is glucose, plus oxygen. This is the equation for photosynthesis. I'm going to get a different marker, I promise. But cell respiration is going to be glucose plus oxygen yields, go the other direction if you will, CO2 plus water plus energy in the form of ATP. So I didn't write this very well, but these are opposite reactions. Here we go. Mission Impossible. We're done. That gives you an overview of energy and how it connects. Please look this over. You may want to watch it again. On Monday in class, we'll talk about the interrelationships one more time. But the sooner you see the connections between cell respiration, photosynthesis, digestion, energy from the sun, the sooner this will come together for you. Thank you very much.